Good evening. This meeting of the Littleton Licensing Authority will come to order. Item 1 is roll call.
Chair Cole.
Here.
Vice Chair Lavier.
Here.
Authority Member Buchanan.
Here.
Authority Member Day.
Here.
Authority Member Schock.
Here.
Authority Member Webb.
Here.
Authority Member Winsack.
Here. The second item is approval of the agenda. Has the authority had a chance to look at the agenda? Any modifications or a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. All those opposed? We've got a approved agenda. Item number 3A is certification of the May 11, 2016 regular minutes.
I move to approve, based on the clerk's certification, the May 11th video as the minutes for the May 11th, 2016 regular meeting of the Littleton Licensing Authority.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'll abstain from this vote. I wasn't present.
All right. The next item on the agenda is item 5A, resolution to approve a liquor license application for 7-Eleven Inc. doing business as 7-Eleven Store 37560H, 5898 South Broadway, Littleton, Colorado. And it looks as though we've got exhibits A through F. I will move that we enter exhibits A through F into the record.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. Is there a representative from the applicant here this evening?
There sure is. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the authority. My name is Kevin Coates. I'm from Dillon Dill. My registration number is 25995. I appear as the attorney here for 7-Eleven Incorporated. We have Amada Trejo, who is a field consultant here with 7-Eleven. This is a corporate store, so he'll testify, or maybe by offer of proof, I'll testify regarding most of the issues associated with control of the licensed premise if license is granted. And Ms. Johnson's here present from her company, Esquire, for the petitioning and survey.
Okay. I know you've been here before, but we usually let the applicant present anything about what, we've obviously received the application, but anything about the application or the survey kind of as you see fit, and we can ask questions as we go. So if you want to point out anything at the start, or if you want to bring up.
Perfect. We might swear these folks in, I guess, at the same time, or do you?
Sure, yeah, if you want to, actually, if you don't mind having them both come up. And if you could just one at a time lean into the microphone and identify yourself, and then we'll swear you in.
I'm Amado Trejo with 7-Eleven.
Okay, thank you. And come on up and identify yourself.
Carol Johnson with Esquire Petitioning Services.
Okay. To both of you, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this authority is truthful?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll give you a brief rundown, and then they can affirm most of what I have to say, and then we'll do that through the question and answer session. But Ms. Johnson can testify that there's obviously a good petitioner result here, petition and survey result, above 90%, obviously showing that there's a need and desire in the area for this class of license to issue, that being a 3-2 beer off-premise consumption license. 7-Eleven has about 350 of these throughout the state. A little bit more than that, I think, at this point, maybe touching on close to 4. But this is a corporate store, as you've heard before. Their model typically, since about 2005, is to franchise these stores. So they'll start as a corporate store, and then often franchise the store to a franchisee who will be the day-to-day operator through joint licensing, because there's risk of loss and as well as financial interest on both sides and control on both sides of that franchise agreement. But right now, this store, anticipated to open in September, is just a corporate store. So that's why Mr. Trejo is present here as a field consultant. He oversees, and actually he's filling in for another field consultant. The field consultant is Wendell Riffel, R-I-F-F-E-L. He cannot be here tonight, but as a fellow field consultant, Mr. Trejo is here to testify regarding 7-Eleven's setup. Basically, their setup is it's a convenience store, pretty basic. They don't expect a lot of sales. Typically, sales are around $30 a day. in terms of alcohol sales. But it's kind of one of those things that there's a need and desire for the license typically because folks sometimes come in and want to buy other products, including 3-2 beer. And if they don't have toilet paper, even though they don't have a lot of toilet paper sales, they may not come at all. So it's obviously one of those products that's in a line of a trade and a brand in terms of the setup for the items, and it's needed for that purpose. They have a training program. It's called the Come of Age Training Program. They retrain on an annual basis all of their employees. They have to get 100% on their test that they basically take that goes over issues associated with vertical versus horizontal ID, types of identifications accepted, no sales to visibly intoxicated persons, those type of issues that are important and consistent with what the responsible vendor training is it's given throughout the state. They have a secret shoppers program. They basically check that the policy age at the corporate level is 30 and under, and they make sure that the employees are in fact carding individuals that look 30 and under. So when they go in through the secret shoppers, they'll send them in someone over the age of 21 but looks less than 30. And they basically check that system that way. The individuals that are fail in a secret shoppers, they get a red card. If you get a red card, you're on a warning system. You have to retrain and do everything associated with that. And then obviously if anybody fails a sting operation, their employees are terminated typically. And that is basically their setup. The premise is set up in a manner that encourages lawful alcohol sales. There's a point of sale system that basically you can see the alcohol from any given point where the clerk sits in terms of the register to make sure that alcohol isn't stolen, as well as they can size the individual up as they're coming up from basically pulling from the door. Doors are locked between midnight and 5 a.m., which is the restricted hours of the sales. They have possession of licensed premise either pursuant to a lease or ownership. I do believe this one's a lease, greater than 1 year. And it's a company of good moral character. Nothing in its background makes it ineligible to have an ownership interest or control interest in a liquor licensed establishment. So I think that's the basics of the criteria necessary, and also is part of the application that you've admitted and you can take administrative notice of. With that being said, I think I'll ask Ms. Johnson to come up and affirm some of these things, as well as Mr. Trejo, and we'll go from there, if that's appropriate. Thank you. If I may. I don't want to crowd you, so
That's
I'll
okay.
talk
We can-
loud and
we
you can
can-
talk into the microphone. Ms. Johnson, you're here on behalf of Esquire, and you did the petition and survey associated with this particular application, is that correct?
Correct.
And you've testified obviously in front of this authority before many times with respect to a petition and survey to articulate whether or not there's a need and desire in an area for another class of 3-2 beer license to issue, is that correct?
Correct.
And you obviously do this throughout the state of Colorado, as does the company Esquire, is that
Yes.
correct? Why don't you tell the authority a little bit about what you do on a regular basis, how you conduct these petition and surveys, and then go ahead and tell the authority what your results were. Although I better ask, the petition's already admitted into evidence, is that correct?
That's correct.
So go ahead and let these folks know essentially what you did and how you did it.
Okay, fine, thank you. The businesses were done on Tuesday, April 26th, and the residents were done on Sunday, May 15th. We usually meet at the location, but since this was under construction, we met right on the street behind it, went over the paperwork. All of our petitioners that worked on this job have been with the company numerous years, so they are familiar with doing 7-Elevens. We also normally go all 4 quadrants, radiate out from that, but there are no residents on the east side and very few businesses on the east side of Broadway. So they were all north and south on the west side of Broadway. We did a total of 512 door knocks, of which 130 people signed the petition, 81 declined to sign, 19 were ineligible, and 298 did not respond to the door knock. There are a group of apartments there, plus, if I remember right, it was raining that day, so I think there were just some people who just were trying to stay hidden. We had results of 104 residents and 16 business owners or managers for 120 in support for 92.3%. We had 10 residents and 0 business owners in opposition for 7.7%, equaling the 130 and 100%. Of that, the reasons stated signing in opposition, 5 did not drink alcohol, and 5 felt there were sufficient number of outlets in the designated neighborhood. So as a result, in the final analysis, we had 120 in favor for 96.0%, 5 in opposition for 4.0%, for the total of 125 equaling 100%. And I will answer any of your questions.
Any questions from the authority? All right, thank you.
Ms. Johnson be excused?
Yes, that's fine.
Actually, I should ask one question just for the purpose of the record. Your petition results, the raw numbers are about 92%, and the needs and desired numbers are about 96%. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
And do those show that there's a need and desire in the area for another class of 3-2 beer license to issue, in your opinion?
Yes, I do.
Very good. I have no additional questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Trejo, excuse me, Trejo. I mispronounced his name. You've previously been sworn, is that correct, Mr. Trejo?
Yes.
And you heard me.
Can you just make sure you lean in, the video is our recording of the.
Okay.
So for both the questions and the answers?
Yeah,
I'll lean in and talk about it.
there you go.
Thank you.
You previously have been sworn, is that correct?
Correct.
And you heard me talk to the authority about how 7-Eleven set up, how this is a corporate store, what the training program is at 7-Eleven, what the secret shoppers program is at 7-Eleven, as well as control over licensed premise. You heard me talk about that with the authority.
Yes.
Do you have any disagreement about what it is that I said?
No.
And do you adopt that as your comments here tonight with respect to this particular licensed premise? If in fact, this license is granted to this authority.
Yes, I do.
And could you tell them a little bit more about that come-of-age training program, just so they have a feel from you, essentially how it is that you are going to maintain control over this licensed premise, or how 7-Eleven will maintain control over this licensed premise in order that we don't have sales of alcohol to minors or visibly intoxicated persons?
Okay. So upon being hired, an employee will go through several computer-based training modules, one of them being come of age, which he spoke about. Now, they are not allowed to sell alcohol until they pass that with 100% accuracy. This training module goes through various occasions or situations, simulations, if you would, of sale of alcohol or different situations that might occur in the store, such as selling to a minor, selling to someone with a fake ID. It goes through how to identify different types of identifications, what to look for, government-issued IDs, state-issued IDs, passports, military ID, what to look for fake IDs, how to identify just basically a fake ID, rules and regulations that the company has in policy. Like you said, 30 age or under, we look for an ID. It goes through how to deal with a guest if they're intoxicated and they're trying to purchase beer, if they're trying to purchase the beer at inappropriate time for whatever reason. Sometimes we may have a warm display of beer set up. That's very rare, especially here in Colorado. But if that were the case where they had beer, what to do in the event that they come up and the time is, in the middle of the night and we can't sell beer. So you go through that, and like you said, once a year, we recertify everybody. And and like you said also, we do have the BARS program where they go through and basically do a sting operation, whether to see if you're following protocol. If you're IDing guests, and they have guests that look, 30 age or under, and if you fail, you get the red card. If you get the red card, you get final warning, and you have to recertify on the come of age program. If you get another one, then you're terminated. Or if you're a franchise store, you would receive a breach of contract, and the employee would be terminated.
And that's in a sting operation, the employee is actually terminated, is that correct?
In the sting operation by state or any other government.
In all likelihood, this store eventually will be franchised. That's not what we're here about tonight, but even
Right.
under that franchise agreement, the franchisee receives a breach of essentially that agreement.
Right.
You're not allowed to have another franchise for a period of time, is that correct?
That's correct. So it's imperative, even to franchisees, to abide by all the rules and regulations. If they don't, they are in breach of contract.
The employees sign off on an acknowledgement form, basically acknowledging not only that they went through the training, they've done the training, but that they also will be subject to, or can be and really will be, subject to criminal prosecution if in fact they sell alcohol to a minor in a sting operation. Is that
Correct. Yeah.
Not only that, terminated, but they're also going to get charged, and they know that, and they're told that. Is that correct?
Right. They're told of the liabilities.
This store is anticipated to open in September, is that right?
Correct.
About 7 to 10 employees you plan on having, true?
Yeah.
And you'll pull a manager probably from another location that obviously has experience in managing 7-Elevens as well as 3-2 beer operations.
Oh,
Is that
yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
All of those employees essentially will have to go through this come-of-age training program that you described, and all of those employees will be subject to that BARS program that you described as well. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
They're also subject to videotape. They're monitored by videotape, true?
Yes.
And the point-of-sale system as it's set up, really between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m., it doesn't let you make an alcohol sale.
No.
Fair? It
Yeah.
won't let you sell alcohol between that period of time.
No, not at all.
But I think you were referring to that one of the other things that's critical is that folks don't steal the alcohol. Is that a fair statement? You want to make sure that you folks aren't taking alcohol and running for the door.
Right.
Kids,
So
whomever.
we do lock the door. We do have locks on the door, which we typically lock. So there's not even access to it between those hours.
And you saw that licensed premise, that kind of triangular shape that's part of this application. What did you call that? You had a name for that.
It's called a home plate
Home
design.
plate. So it has an entryway at the front, and then basically that's this one way in, only way out, essentially, other than by emergency exit. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And obviously, when I asked you the question, or I talked, I'm sorry, to the authority, do you agree that the employee from the counter can see the beer doors at all given time, make sure that they can size the individual up if in fact they pull the door open and bring beer up to the counter, so that they can make sure that they identify whether or not they need to card the person or not?
Oh, yeah. You should be able to see the beer door from the sales counter.
Was I correct in my statement that 7-Eleven's a company of good moral character, nothing in its background that would make it ineligible to have a liquor licensed establishment control or interest in? Is that correct?
Correct.
And there's approximately 350 to 400 of these throughout the state of Colorado, true?
Correct.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered here tonight that you want to tell the authority that I haven't asked you a question about?
I don't think so.
They may have several questions for you, so I tender you to them for any questions that they have.
Okay.
Questions from the authority?
I'd really like to know, there's a 7-Eleven 3 blocks away. Do you usually do that? Put them that close?
Yes, not typically, but depending on which side of the street it's on, and if the address is actually on the same street or if it would be on the
Well,
side street.
they're both on Broadway. It is on the other side of the street. That's correct.
So typically, yeah, if we see an opportunity to gain traffic from the opposite side, we do that. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's completely,
The franchise store?
I'm not sure if the one,
Because I'm sure there's got to be some kind of franchise agreement, isn't there, of boundaries that you have
there
to give?
is, and I'm not exactly sure of what the distance is.
Let me state, I'm not entirely sure either. I mean, I know the franchise agreement, I've been doing this about 10 years, and it happens from time to time. And it's typically to pick up that cross traffic on a busy street from one side to the other. I'm not sure there's a radius restriction in there associated with 7-Eleven, though, being able to put another one in from one side of the street to the other. I'm not familiar with that. It's a really good question that I haven't been asked before, but I have seen it handful of times through the last 10 years where, now, in other respects of where I've seen it is that sometimes when they're moving from one side to the other, and then eventually there may be a downsizing of the store. I don't know if that's occurring here or not, to be honest with you. I just don't know. It's a really, really good question, because usually I know the answers to all the questions that are asked of these things, but that one, I'm not sure if there is anything going on with that particular store across the street, or even if it's a franchisee store.
I just wondered, I had a friend that owned a McDonald's at Arap by ACC. And when they built it by Home Depot, he had right of first refusal because it was within his boundaries.
That happens a lot too. I know that 7-Eleven does work very hard with franchisees, although I can't recall if under those other 5 scenarios I talked to you about, if it was the same franchisee that basically
Mr. Trejo, after the store opens and if you're granted a license, how soon do you conduct a compliance check on the new employees?
They do it as soon as they're hired. So whether we're open or not, as soon as we hire them, they're required to do this within the first 48 hours. And like I said, if they have not passed that come of age yet, they're not allowed to sell alcohol at all, or any age-restricted products for that matter. So one thing I did forget to mention is it doesn't just cover alcohol, it covers any age-restricted product, which could be lighters, butane, lottery tickets, et cetera.
Once the store is open, when do you then send someone into the store to check as to whether to test their licensing?
As far as licensing or the bars, the bars program is
yeah.
done quarterly, and so within 3 months, definitely.
Thank you.
If I could ask you a few questions in regards to the attachment you submitted under question number 8 that dealt with suspensions. The last reported date on this one was November 6th of 2015. Any suspensions since that date?
None that I'm aware of.
If you can speak into the microphone when you answer.
I think here. The date on that's November? Is that the date of this application? Prior to the date of the application? That's my question, I guess.
I received the application in early April.
So it should have been up to date by the time of the application. Whether or not there's been one since, and what happens is we go by date of basically suspension, or date of when the agree versus the violation date.
Into the microphone, please.
We go off of based upon the date that the suspension attaches, and as you know, you'll find probable cause on somebody to deny it regarding a violation that probably occurred within the last month. That's not going to show up on a list until that violation suspension occurs, right? So there may be a couple since that time frame of filing this application in April. I'm unaware of a corporate one. There may be one state corporate one now that I'm thinking about it. But the franchisees, again, we don't necessarily monitor exactly every one of those, although they are reported and it's updated prior to any application. So trying to answer your question from the time frame of that application to date, I'm not 100%, but I could tell you that it's probably within the ballpark of 1 or 2.
Okay. And so of the 38 suspensions, 37 of them were for sale to a minor.
And that's over the last 3 years,
And
correct?
is there anything you can address on that, steps you've taken to try to not allow that to happen?
Well, and I think one thing you may have to want to consider here is that this is probably the largest license holder in the state of Colorado. So yes, and unfortunately, yes, there are violations. They obviously have taken the steps that they can in terms of training in the employees, as well as checking the employees through that training, as well as monitoring associated with the video and those type of things. Have there been failures? Sure. I don't believe there's been as many. I mean, I think there's been a decrease, at least over the years, in terms of time. There certainly has over the last 10-year period of time. But what I can tell you is, and again, I know this isn't a good answer, but it's the truth. There's a lot of licenses, and there's a lot of transactions, and there's a lot of turnover with respect to this type of clerk because it's 3-2 beer. Unfortunately, that's a difficult thing to manage on a daily basis.
I'd like to add, if I may. One of the things our asset protection has begun doing is sending out reports on those failed shops quarterly. And not only they would report to us on a regular basis, but now they're giving us aggregated data that has been compiled over time with a score or a rank of who has been given red cards the most. And now as field consultants, we are then going to address those stores with a higher ratio of red cards to green cards. So to further address any, future mishaps.
No, I believe last time 7-Eleven was in front of us, one of the questions was the manager who was going to be managing that store and whether or not that specific manager had had any violations over the stores that he or she, I don't remember, was overseeing. In this case, it sounds like there's not a manager yet, so that wouldn't be a helpful question as far as, you know, what's going to happen in Littleton. But is there anything else you can add? Yeah, and I understand there's a volume consideration here, and it's something that we'll just have to take into account. But anything else specific to Littleton or region or anything like that that you could add just to help us make a good determination about likelihood of it happening here in Littleton?
So, no, it's a great question, because, and it's a fair question. We don't have an answer tonight because we don't have a manager selected.
Okay.
What I can tell you generally will happen, though, and generally has happened by experience, is that it won't be long before the store is franchised. Okay, that the model over the last 10 years has been to move from corporate stores to franchise stores. And in fact, the model as of late has been that we're not even starting as a corporate store and then shifting to a franchise store later. It's been mostly, they come in together. 7-Eleven and the franchisees typically have been applying jointly for new licenses as of late. That didn't happen on this one because they don't have a franchisee. But you can probably speculate well that there will be a franchisee soon. And the benefit of the franchisee is that's like a small business owner, for, you know, and they obviously are at stake on a daily basis associated with this particular location. So they have their own manager, and they bring in, you know, they'll take from within the corporation or themselves to have individuals, but typically the franchisees are hands-on. So you have another party there to that mix that basically really cares about the licensing issues in particular. And the reason they care in particular about that is what we talked about before. They don't want to breach with 7-Eleven. So aside from the penalty for the employee and aside from the penalty with respect to a suspension, those franchisees suffer an even larger penalty from their business model because typically they'd like to have more than one. And they can't get one for a period of time, somewhere upwards of 2 years, a year or 2 years, if they have a violation. So there's a built-in mechanism for that. Now, I don't know if that doesn't fully answer your question, because the real answer to the question was, we don't know yet. But that's generally what you'd find.
Okay.
One thing I can say is that I know all the managers we currently have. We don't have very many corporate stores, so we don't have very many corporate managers. I know that none of them have any citations for selling underage. If they had been cited, they would have been terminated. So I can't say that. And that's not to say that we wouldn't hire a new manager, but I don't foresee us hiring a new manager.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just speculative. If it does go to a franchisee and they're the owner of the store, the small business, like you said, do they have a say in the product mix?
No. The reason that's why it's joint licensing, because 7-Eleven has so much control. That's one of the things that requires, that product line is controlled by 7-Eleven. So the day-to-day risk of loss is on the franchisee, but because that franchise agreement does have elements of control, that's why you have a joint license versus just licensing the franchisee under the trade name 7-Eleven.
And you would, if you were to add a franchisee to a joint license, you would apply, right? You would file an amended
It would be a change of corporate structure.
change of corporate structure.
Well,
Okay.
I don't mean to, we have to file transfers on those. So it's a change of ownership.
Okay.
We go from A, 7-Eleven, to A and B,
Okay.
7-Eleven franchisee. So a change of corporate structure, we couldn't quite figure out how to get that done because basically the ownership is you're adding a new entity as a joint licensee. So we actually, you know,
Your
they have to
practice
pay
is
the
to-
fees and go through the process and do it as if it's a transfer. I can't remember if there are hearings out here for transfer, so you may not have seen one.
Only if something weird comes up in the back.
Yeah, only if something comes about, so administratively that
That's right.
occurs, but it does require that transfer of ownership application.
Any other questions from the authority? Anything you'd like to add before we close public testimony?
I just tell you, and just skip ahead to close the public testimony, I mean, I don't see anybody here to oppose us. So because of that, we'll just make the final statements that believe we've met a prima facie case for issuance of the license, and without a rebuttal from anyone, we'd ask that the license issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There is no one who has signed up to testify, although I'll offer it to the room, being no one. Any discussion from the authority? Or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I move that the public hearing be closed and that a resolution of the Littleton Licensing Authority be approved, which grants 7-Eleven Incorporated DBA 7-Eleven Store 37560H, 5898 South Broadway, Littleton, Colorado, a 3.2 liquor license contingent upon approval. Hold on, just lost my place. By the Colorado Liquor Enforcement Division and based on the following findings of fact. 1, that notice of the hearing was properly posted and published. 2, that the applicant has possession of the premises and the premises are suitable for the requested license. 3, that the needs in the neighborhood are not now being met. 4, that it is the desire of the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood that the license be issued. 5, that existing similar liquor licenses in the designated neighborhood are not adequate. And 6, that the applicant is of good moral character, record, and reputation.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, will the clerk please poll the authority?
Chair Cole,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lavere,
Yes.
Authority Member Buchanan,
Yes.
Authority Member Schock,
Yes.
Authority Member Webb.
Yes.
All right, it passes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Now, I guess I don't need the microphone in this. Can I make a quick comment?
Sure. Go ahead and make it in the microphone. Just
Oh,
in
there
case.
we go.
We're going to keep you after it, yeah.
This has always been a very friendly place to come, I've found. And it was interesting tonight because I think it's a 5-member board, is that right? But you have seven distinguished gentlemen sitting up there.
5 members, 2 alternates.
They look a little, it's a little frightening. I'm just telling you. I mean, it just looks a little scarier than it normally does. But obviously, you guys are a very friendly group and always have been. But I'm just saying, just on appearances, it's like, if I was here on a violation tonight, I might be a little bit concerned about it. So,
Stick around for that.
No,
Counselor, we don't want to see you back here.
I know, I
hopefully,
understand. Well, maybe on a new one.
Sure,
That's okay.
sure. Yeah.
No more 7-Elevens.
Appreciate it. You guys have a great night.
Thank you all. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Have a good night.
Take care.
The next item on the agenda is item 8A, determination of probable cause exists to set a show cause hearing for LC Taverns, Inc., doing business as Old Town Tavern, 2410 West Main Street, Littleton, Colorado. We have 2 attachments. I will move that we enter exhibits A and B into the record.
I will second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Would the city like to make any comment before we take a look?
Thank you, Chairman. What you have in front of you is the consideration of probable cause based on possible violations of the Littleton City Code and the Colorado Liquor Code, which include Littleton City Code 3-2-10 F and the Colorado Liquor Code 12-47-901 1A, both having to do with service to a visibly intoxicated person.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
To the city attorney, do you believe there is probable cause for us to go forward?
That's for you to make that determination. Certainly, my recommendation would be that there is probable cause, but that's for you to make that determination.
I think we have to look into the police report here because that's the only source of information. We have to see if we can find probable cause in any of these paragraphs.
And based on the police report, it looks like they did find like an empty bottle of Jack in his jacket, which means he could either drink it while he was in there or
Prior to or anything, but the issue here tonight is that regardless of, the licensee is the one that's under our purview here, and the licensee is the one that's going to be called in. We have to assess what the licensee noticed when they served the individual.
It would be the licensee or their agent.
Or their agents, the bartender in this situation. What we're looking for here is that they missed something.
That's what I see, and I see him going in, from what I read here, visibly drunk, and then they sold him shots.
Yeah.
And that's where I have a problem, and I think we should bring him in.
Well, here's, the first thing is everything leading up to, and we'll get there probably to the same place, but let me just clarify that everything that the three friends that met this gentleman outside say, and what they observed of him outside, wasn't observed by the bartender. But about the most damning thing that I could see on here was the patron that was inside the bar as the intoxicated
As he
fellow
walked
came
by.
inside. He said that just in the guy brushing up with him with a pizza box, he looked at him in a very cursory way and noticed that he was glazed over, that he was not present, that there were some obvious signs. And that's about the most convincing thing that in this that I could see. Beyond that, it's a really thin line to see if you can get prosecution off of that one testimony, but that one testimony, I think, does meet the standard of probable cause.
Did he buy the shots from the bartender, or did someone else buy the shots?
He bought them.
He bought the shots,
He
according
bought them,
to,
so
according to
he-
the report.
So he bought them from the bartender and still had the same glazed eyes that the other guy saw?
Well, that would be the connection we would make. I mean, which is why I think we do need to have the licensee come in and be able to gather more information. I think, there's two different statements from witnesses in the police report, one saying that the person did not seem to think that he was visibly intoxicated, one saying that he was, but I think in our case, as far as meeting the standard, I think that the one person saying that he looked visibly intoxicated seems to me enough to go forward and gather more information.
Right, and correct. And so at this stage, you're not looking that there's sufficient evidence that a violation did occur. That's what you're going to be investigating and taking evidence on at the show cause hearing. This just needs to be that there's a reasonable belief that a violation may have occurred. And so then you come back for the show cause hearing to take in that evidence, additional evidence.
I have some procedural questions of the clerk or the city attorney. Has the licensee, LC Taverns, acknowledged receipt of the notice?
Considering one of them is here, I would say yes.
Okay. And have
Also
they,
Senate certified, correct? And you received the return notice.
and have they opened discussions with the city attorney about an offering compromise?
So they won't until, so the way that it's set up, we haven't had one of these in a little while, is that the motion is set up so that the show cause hearing is actually 2 months away, and we would bring back any sort of stipulation next month. And so tonight, if you find probable cause, then we'll notify the city prosecutor, and then they will begin negotiation on a stipulation that if one is reached or close to being reached, we would come back next month.
Okay, and at what point are we allowed to see the previous record of this licensee?
So that would be at the,
Show cause, or if a
Yes.
stipulation was reached.
Yes, or at the
it would-
stipulation.
It would be part of, or we would be able to ask those questions when considering the
correct, so
stipulation.
you'd be looking at that when you're looking at what sort of penalty to impose. You're looking at mitigating and aggravating circumstances, including the previous violations by the licensee, if there are any.
Any other discussion from the authority? Would anyone like to make a motion? I will make a motion. I move to find that there is probable cause to believe that LC Taverns, Inc., doing business as Old Town Tavern, 2410 West Main Street, Littleton, Colorado, on March 31st, 2016, did violate the Colorado Liquor Code and Littleton City Code. Based on these findings, I move that a public hearing be set for August 10th, 2016, for the purpose of considering the status of the license wherein the above-mentioned licensee may be present to show cause, if any, why its license should not be suspended or revoked, and further that notice of these findings and the hearing to show cause shall be forwarded and served to LC Taverns, Inc., doing business as Old Town Tavern, 2410 West Main Street, Littleton, Colorado, in accordance with the provisions of state law. I move that a preliminary hearing, if necessary, be set for July 13th, 2016, for the purpose of considering a possible stipulation, if any, between the licensee and the city of Littleton.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I would just reiterate that, I never lightly vote to bring a licensee in. I understand that there's certainly a burden to then defend themselves, but it seems to me like we have enough information that we need to see what happened that night. So if there is no further discussion, will the clerk please poll the authority?
Chair Cole,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lavere,
Yes.
Authority Member Buchanan,
Yes.
Authority Member Schock,
Yes.
Authority Member Webb.
Yes.
That motion passes. The next item on the agenda is 16A. Are there any reports from the staff?
Yes, there are.
Kristen had just asked me to update you guys on any on any bills that had come, legislation that had come before the House or the Senate. And I know that I've been told that last time you guys discussed, I think it was Senate Bill 197, the one concerning.
Full-strength liquor grocery stores?
Yeah, the drugstore, the new liquor license drugstore. And there's been no changes on that. It still has not been signed. The other legislation is there's a House Bill 1439 that concerns the creation of a new alcohol beverage license, lodging and entertainment for facilities to sell alcohol beverages by drink for consumption on the licensed presence, and to allow the holders of a tavern license to convert to a lodging and entertainment license. That has also not yet been signed, but it has been passed by both the House and the Senate.
The second reference bill, do you have a brief summary of the difference between the two licenses you mentioned?
The tavern and the lodging and entertainment?
Yeah, so it would just allow them to convert without applying for a new license? Like neither of those are new
Yeah,
license types, right? It's just
At
allowing the
this time,
conversion.
yes. Right now, there are establishments, none in Littleton specific, that are operating under a tavern license because there's nothing else that meets the definition of what they really are.
Okay. So it is creating a new type of license?
Yes.
Okay.
So would that be like Red and Jerry's or Dave and Buster's, or would that be more like casinos and racetracks?
Yeah, Dave and Buster's, and they would operate under a hotel and restaurant license because their primary is the hotel, and then, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's only one other one, is that they're adding additional mitigating factors for responsible vendors. It adds 2 violations: 1, the sale to a minor not involving a compliance check, and 2, sale to a visibly intoxicated person. To the list of violations, the local and state licensing shall consider when assessing penalties if the licensee fulfills the requirements of a responsible vendor pursuant to Colorado state law.
Is that a rule change or yes?
Yeah, because right now, there's nothing in state law that says a licensee has to be TIPS trained or anything like that. Once they've taken on the burden of doing that and become a responsible vendor and had their staff TIPS trained, then this kicks in. If they haven't already done that, then that is something that we could still use as part of a stipulation in the penalty phase, that they become TIPS trained by a date certain or something like that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other reports from staff? Any questions or reports from authority members?
Yeah, I'll start with, there's just news reports today that the governor is agonizing over this SB 197. If he does veto it, he said that he will call a special session to sort it out. If he signs it, then we've got a whole lot of new legislation to parse through. And then secondly, is it possible for Colleen to have a red card when the microphone isn't being used properly, you can flash it up, and then that immediately tells us to interject.
I would be happy to do that.
Thank
I
you.
think also we were over here talking about having, either getting a microphone clip, or we have
lavalier mic, yeah.
because we have this problem where the attorneys are trying to elicit testimony, and it's very awkward, so.
Or even
we'll-
if there's, just the desk, one on a stand that we could add during authority, if possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that
we'll
would be
work on
nice.
that.
Okay. Thank you, so that they don't have to feel like they need to be extremely intimate so that we can still get an accurate recording of the meeting. Yeah.
Back and forth.
Members of the authority, you might be interested in the story in yesterday's Denver Business Journal. It was a profile of the owner of the View House, Francois Sedefine, who's appeared before this authority, who intimated that the construction of the View House was to start this month, and it would be open by December.
Great.
I looked in the window and I saw chairs and furniture that had been delivered, so looks like they are doing something.
It originally said, I thought, March of this year, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments, reports from the authority? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.